All right, we have an amazing chef. So this evening it's the M&M duo, Michael and Michael. So please, everybody, welcome Michael Pinson.
All right, good evening, everybody. How we doing? All right, so this evening we're going to be, I'm going to be doing it. You guys will be watching. I'm going to be doing a seared scallop with a sweet pea puree and crispy prosciutto. So first thing, I'm going to start with the prosciutto. Oops. Might help if I had the prosciutto. All right.
What is prosciutto?
Prosciutto is a cured Italian ham.
Cured Italian ham. Awesome.
And it is delicious. This evening, I'll be using the Parma prosciutto, which is a very good quality prosciutto. Got some thin slicing, so I'm going to go ahead and put it on my pan. You can buy this pre-sliced if you don't happen to have a slicer at home, so you can just buy it pre-sliced from majority of the stores. So I'm going to slice it not too thin, not too thick. That way, so when I go to crisp it up, it doesn't fall apart and it doesn't just kind of turn to charcoal, pretty much. So I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to line it with a piece of paper here. Then I'm just going to go ahead and throw that in my oven. Okay. That is parchment paper. Yeah. All right, so next, I'm going to go ahead and get my scallop out. Because I want this to kind of come up to room temp a little bit. So it's not ice cold when I go to cook it. So I'm just going to go ahead and set that out for a minute. And while that stuff's kind of working, I'm going to get started on the pea puree. Yes? I just took it out of the fridge. Well, no, not really. Kind of just cleaned it off a little bit, wiped it off, and removed the foot that comes on there. So I just kind of peel that off and then set them off to the side.
But if, for example, if you had like a fresh live scallop, you would definitely want to rinse it. After you shucked it, you would take the foot off it and then actually rinse it in cold water.
All right, so I'm basically just going to put my peas in my pot and put a little bit of water in there just to kind of cover it a little bit. And I'm just going to let that go for about 3 to 4 minutes, just until the peas get up to temperature a little bit. I just want them warmed up a little bit. Okay, and while that's happening, I'll go ahead and talk about the scallops a little bit. The scallops are in the mollusk family, so they're related to clams, oysters, most things with the shell. What sets these guys apart is they actually are free-living, which means they can swim, as opposed to their cousins. They are pretty much, the oysters and clams are stationary or submitted to a rock of some sort. These guys actually swim. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it looks pretty funny because they just kind of clap their shell together and they just kind of move around really erratically. So another thing, when you're out purchasing scallops, make sure to see if you can find the sea scallop, for searing or grilling or any of that kind of cooking. And make sure you ask for the dry pack. Try to want to avoid the wet pack because they normally inject that with SCP, which is a preservative. And it also kind of inflates the weight a little bit, so you're not getting your money's worth. And when you go to cook them, they shrink dramatically because all that liquid comes out. So you can't really get a good sear on them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get these bad boys out of here and kind of dry them up a little bit because I don't want any moisture on them when I go to sear them. How do you guys like it so far? Very nice. So I'm going to let these guys dry out a little bit. Now, basically, I'm just trying to warm these up a little bit. I don't want to overcook them. So we are making a puree, but I don't want it to be too mushy. And the spring peas are great to use for this. Right now, you can get them fresh in the pod, so you just get them, peel them right out of the pod, make them nice and fresh and sweet.
And you also may see them in the market as called English peas. It's the same thing.
So basically now I'm going to just drain out the water. So I don't want to get that water into the puree. I just want the peas and the mascarpone. All right. So now that those are drained, I'm going to use the food processor here. Shake off a little bit of that excess water. All right, so now I'm going to add my mascarpone cheese.
What exactly is mascarpone?
It's a soft, sweet cheese, basically, so an Italian creamy cheese. It's pretty versatile. You can use it for desserts, savory dishes, pretty much anything you'd like.
Very similar to a cream cheese, but just a little bit sweeter. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say that a little bit thicker and creamier. All right. So now I got that in there. I'm going to go ahead and add my mint just to give it a little bit of that nice, fresh, minty flair. Just a little pinch of salt. So I'm going to give this a quick little run through. Now I'm looking for it to be, I want it to be pureed, but have a little bit of texture still left in it. So I don't want all the peas to be all the way pureed. So this process is really quick, simple, easy. I mean, me personally, I've never been a big fan of peas, but trying it like this, I kind of like peas now. I don't know what happened there, but.
So,
right.
Michael, having young kids in the household, is this something that you may feed them?
Actually, yeah. This is something that my daughter loves. My kids are kind of weird. They love their vegetables and fruit and all that stuff. Yeah, I've never seen a 4-year-old choose zucchini over a fruit roll-up. It's kind of odd.
It's not a bad thing.
No, it's awesome. All right, so now that that's done, I'm just going to go ahead and set that off to the side.
So how are we doing? How are the scallops?
All right, so for the scallops, you want to make sure you have a nice hot pan because you don't want these guys to overcook. You want to get that nice crisp caramelization on the outside and keep it like medium rare, medium on the inside. So you want to use a nice high heat to achieve that without making it like a rubber. Because if you overcook it, they get really hard and they're not very enjoyable. So now that my prosciutto has been cooking in my magic oven back there, I'm going to go ahead and pull these out, and they should look a little bit like this when they come out. They're nice and crisp, almost like prosciutto jerky. I'll just set those off to the side. All right, so now my pan should be nice and hot. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of olive oil blend. It's an 80-20 canola and olive oil. And I try to avoid using like a pure olive oil because it's got a lower smoke point, so you can't get the higher temperature. I'm going to just season these guys up with a little salt and pepper. All right, so now my pan's smoking a little bit. I'll turn it down to about a medium heat. I'm going to go ahead and put my scallops on there. So now I'm going to go ahead and put these guys on there for about a minute. I'm not going to touch them. I'm just going to kind of let them cook. Uh-oh. Very nice. So yeah, I want these guys to sit still a little bit. I'm going to kind of watch the edges while they're cooking to see that it starts to brown and crisp up a little bit before I flip them. So it should be about a minute, maybe like a minute and 20 seconds or so. All right. Anybody have any? What's that? I just basically, like I said, watch the sides a little bit because they will start to brown around right here, and you can start seeing them cook a little bit.
And really what it is, it's just the natural sugars that are in it that actually start to caramelize. So you'll be able to see it caramelizing around the edge.
All right. All right. Anybody have any questions? Right. I've got a question back there, sir.
So she asked a question about bay scallops. So there's two different kinds of scallops. There's a sea scallop and a bay scallop. A bay scallop is a scallop that's in size is much smaller, and it's also the reason they call them bay scallops because usually they're in shallower waters in bays. And a sea scallop is a deeper water scallop. And to farm or to harvest a sea scallop, they either do this fishing technique called dredging, where they actually dredge the bottom of the ocean, and that tears up all the coral, it tears up everything that's in the ocean. Or they do a diver scallop, which they actually have a diver that dives down to them. That's what these scallops are. These are diver scallops. And with like a bay scallop, they do farm bay scallops because it takes a much quicker time to grow. And those scallops are usually harvested just like how they would harvest like farmed oysters or mussels. They're done in baskets, and they just go and pull them up, and that's it. But it's pretty much the size, flavor profile on the two scallops are pretty much exactly the same.
All right. Bay scallops are pretty good. They're good for like salads and soups.
Pasta dishes,
stir fries, stuff like that. But for doing this, it's better to go with the sea scallop. Between the bay and the sea scallops, yeah. Bay scallops are about that big, and then the sea scallops get much larger in size.
So these scallops, the ones you just ate, they're called U10s. And what that means, whenever you hear a number when it comes to shellfish, it's how many are per pound. So there's U10 is usually 10 per pound. So the lower number is the bigger scallop. So I use U8. So the lower the number, the bigger it is. So the scallops that we serve in this restaurant in Black and Blue, we do U8s. So it's usually 8 per pound, so about 2 ounces each.
All right.
And that goes for shrimp. That goes for scallops. It also goes for, say, the prawns as well.
That's correct. All right. All right, so these guys are finishing up nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these guys out and just kind of put them on my cloth here and let it dry up a little bit. All right, now that that's done, I'll go ahead and plate this up. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my pea puree and dab it on the plate here. Do a little... I like to squeeze a little bit of lemon or lime juice on mine, just because I love scallops so much. I mean, they're nice, sweet, succulent. They really don't need much, but you can do this with a variety of sauces. You can do like a little orange sauce, something of that nature, but I just like the fresh citrus lime on top of that. So that's the scallop dish. Any?
Nice.
I do. All right, now we will be moving on to the meat portion of the evening. Speaking of beef, how many of you eat in this room? Have any of you tried the new burger that Chef Michael created for over here? Is that not the best burger you have ever had? Oh man, it is killer. I believe everything on that burger is made in-house. Chef Knowles?
Yes.
What's on your hamburger? The hamburger.
I guess what isn't on the burger, I should say.
Yeah, right?
We do a Wagyu, 10-ounce Wagyu beef burger. So Wagyu, if you don't know, is a breed of cattle that comes from Japan. You may hear under marketing called Kobe, but the breed of cattle is Wagyu, just like you would hear Black Angus is a breed of cattle. And then sometimes you may hear Nebraska corn-fed beef. That's just where it comes from. It doesn't mean it's the breed of cattle. But with our burger, it's Wagyu beef, and we serve that 10 ounces with really thick cut house-made bacon. We do some house-made steak sauce on a house-made bun.
House-made pickles.
Yeah, house-made pickles, the whole deal. So if you haven't tried, it is big. It is big.
It's ginormous. I mean, it is.
You know, if you come to a steakhouse and you get a burger, it should be that way, right?
Absolutely. You don't want
There
any
you
of
go.
that
Amen.
puny burgers. Forget that. All right. So for the steak dish we're doing this evening, I chose to use a flank steak to make a roulade with a balsamic reduction. I love balsamic reductions because they're simple, they're quick, and by reducing the balsamic, you add a level of complexity of flavor to the balsamic vinegar, so you can make any balsamic vinegar taste fantastic. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and get this up to a boil. And kind of get the reducing portion going. So while that's working, I'm going to go ahead and mix the garlic herb mix we're going to use for the flank steak. So I have some chopped parsley, a little bit of sage, or a lot of bit of sage. Put some basil in there, it's because I like basil. So I'm going to go ahead and get some minced garlic. I like garlic, so I'll put it all in there. And then I'll add some shallots. And with this, I'm going to go ahead and hit it with a little bit of oil just so it gets a little wet. All right, so I got all that mixed up together. So I'm going to go ahead and just set that to the side for now.
So is this something that you could do like a day in advance or a couple days in advance?
Oh, absolutely. This would be something you can do like probably, I would say 2 days in advance. You can get this prepped and ready. I like to use the flank steak because it's nice and thin, so it's easy to butterfly and it's easy to roll. And you can go to your butcher. If you don't want to butterfly it, you can ask your butcher to do it for you. I'm sure some of the nicer ones will do it. So I'm basically just going to insert my knife and run it right along without trying to puncture holes in the meat. Keep it nice and straight.
So if you wanted to substitute a different cut of meat, is that possible, like a New York steak or ribeye or something along that lines?
Yeah, it'd be kind of hard to do it with a ribeye, but you could probably do a flat iron if you want to do individual steaks. You could do this with pretty much any meat that you can butterfly. I know I've done a version of this with using a New York, kind of stuffing it more than actual butterflying it, but for a larger portion, this works great for parties or if you're trying to do something for a dinner for a few people. All right. So I'm basically just going to slice that down without cutting all the way through. All right. So now I got that kind of laid out and flapped open a little bit like a butterfly. My balsamic has come up to a boil. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this down. Then I'm going to add my honey. Now, you don't have to use honey. You can use sugar, agave syrup, any kind of sweetener if you like. I just use honey because I like the flavor it adds to it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of honey and then just kind of let that simmer for about 15 minutes or so. All right, so that's going to continue to work. I'm going to go ahead and bring my mix back out. And I'm just going to rub this along the inside of the meat. Kind of get all those flavors permeating into the meat. Now, if you want to do this with different herbs, you can do this with rosemary, thyme, any of the other hard herbs you would like, whatever your preference may be. All right, so that's all lined in there. So I'm going to go ahead and season the inside of the meat. A little salt and pepper. That way you get the seasoning all the way through. And I'm going to go ahead and take my prosciutto, kind of line that right in there. I'm going to try to keep a clearance about 1 inch around the meat so when you roll it, it doesn't start to slide out of there. What's that? No, the prosciutto is already cured and ready to go. So, oh no, it will in the oven. It will take care of that. So, I'm just gonna line that in there. Then I'm gonna take my provolone cheese. Again, this is personal preference. You could do this with Swiss cheese, white cheddar. Horseradish, white cheddar. If you like horseradish, give it a little bite. What other kind of cheese would you put in here, Chef?
You could do Parmesan Reggiano.
Parmesan Reggiano would be killer.
It'd go perfectly well with the prosciutto di Parma.
All right. So now that that's done,
Or you could just leave out the cheese altogether if you're somebody that doesn't like cheese.
Who doesn't like cheese? So now basically, I'm trying to make this difficult. I'm going to try to roll it sideways. Typically, you want to do it this way so you can roll it away from you. I like to challenge a little bit every now and then. So I'm just going to roll this up. There we go. So I want to roll it till I get the seam side down on the cutting board. So we're going to go ahead and tie this up, and it makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do this the easy way. I'm just going to line these in. I'm basically going to put like 5 or 6 of these ties on it just to hold it together when I put it in the oven. All right, so now my pan is getting nice and hot because I'm going to go ahead and sear the outside of this. So now I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of the oil on there. If you want, you can use some of the leftover herb and garlic blend, kind of put a little bit of that on the outside. I'm just going to go ahead and rub that in there. Of course, a little salt and pepper. All right. So now my pan's ready to go. Put a little oil in there. Uh-oh. All right, so again, it's similar to the scallops. I'm going to let this kind of sear a little bit. Oh, I'm the smart one. I'm going to get a nice caramelization on the outside of this, so it's got a nice crisp caramelized on the outside. All right. So I'm just going to rotate this so I can sear all sides of it. Now, if you prefer, you can do this on the grill, but you got to make sure that everything's tied up nice and tight and there's no holes so nothing drips out into the grill. But this is fantastic during the summertime, getting outside, grilling a little bit. What's that? I'm going to put it in the oven for about 20, 25 minutes, depending on like your temperature preference. So the oven should be about 400 degrees, and put it in there. I want to get it up to about 145 degrees, they say, unless you like going about medium rare. All right, so now that's made the rounds a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and keep it seam side down when it goes into the magic oven over here. I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. Let it finish up and check on the balsamic reduction, which so has a little ways to go. For this, I'm looking for a syrupy consistency. You want it to be able to kind of stay in place when you put it on the plate. So while that's finishing up, go ahead and fast forward 30 minutes. Pull this out. It shrunk a lot. But this should be kind of what it looks like. So you're basically just going to take this off. And you want to let it rest for about 15, 20 minutes before you cut into it. You want all the juices to settle back in. If you cut it too soon, they're all just they're gonna run out, and then it won't be nice and juicy. What's that? No, just let it sit and just let it rest. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut off the twine. Just gonna go ahead and cut it. And it should look something like that. And you could serve this with pretty much anything if you want to do it. Like today we did it with a little bit of potato and vegetables. This goes great with like a salad or rice, whatever you prefer. So I'm just going to go ahead and take some of this out. It's not quite ready yet. So while that's working, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys another alternative for this. With your leftovers, if you'd like, you can do little pinwheels. So you want to keep it in your refrigerator and pull it out and cut it while it's cold. And I go ahead and cut about the same amount of size. I'm going to go ahead and take a toothpick, just run it right through there. Basically make a little pinwheel. And then I'm going to pop that in a saute pan. Put a little salt and pepper. I'm just going to do a little sear on that. Now this makes a perfect lunch the next day. So if you could do toss a little salad. This works great with any kind of vinaigrette for the salad, if you like. Just keep it light, and a citrus vinaigrette works. Put a little bit of that. Now the cheese will ooze out a little bit, but it kind of gives it a nice little crispy outer side, so it actually works quite well. Little crispy cheese. So, and then you just kind of do that. Remove the pick, and you got a nice little afternoon snack. So you can get 2 meals out of one. All right, now we're going to see if we have our desired consistency. I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of that on there. Then you get the sweetness with a little bit of the acid, a little bit of flavor. Put a little bit on the vegetables, why not? And there you go. All right.